Coding Made Easy.
So what's up everybody, this is Peter aka Coding Made Easy coming to you guys with your next C# Made Easy tutorial. And in this tutorial we are going to be learning about multi-dimensional arrays. But multi-dimensional arrays are regular arrays, sorry guys, regular arrays or single dimensional arrays are good and they're valuable. But multi-dimensional arrays can open up a new dimension, no pun intended, but they can open up a new dimension to how you work with arrays, and we'll see how we can do this in just a second. So what we're going to do is we want to create we're going to create a tile map, right? Now essentially, whenever we create a single dimensional array, so whenever we create an array like this, I want you to think of temp array. I want you to think of, if I create, just like in the last tutorial, if I make an array of 10, I want you to imagine that we're making a linear row of boxes, okay, of cut holes. Now with multi-dimensional arrays, we'll be able to make boxes like this. So we'll be able to make sort of a cube of boxes like so, and so we'll be able to access elements here, 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 and you'll see how useful this is by the end of this tutorial. So what we're going to do is we want to make a tile map. Now we're going to only have 2 tiles in our tile map, so our tiles are going to consist of a char array, and we're going to call it tiles, and we'll just set the first value to a star or an X, and we'll change this to a star, and that's it. So we just made an array of chars, and I'm not sure if I talked about chars in an earlier tutorial. I hope I did. But chars are basically just characters, and we define them using single quotes. If I have not talked about them in the previous tutorial, I'll expand on them in a future tutorial. But that's essentially what they are. And so we have our chars there, our characters there, and so we want to display our characters in a map form. And so we're going to create a multi-dimensional array to do that. So how do we create a multi-dimensional array? Well, we specify the type, use the angle brackets, and then we put a comma. So this will say that we are creating a 2-dimensional array. So I'm going to call this map, and I'll just end it there. So essentially this is saying, hey, we want one element there and an element there, so we're making a 2-dimensional array. If we made two commas, that would mean that we're making a 3-dimensional array. 4 commas, 4-dimensional array. 5 commas, whatever. We have super huge arrays, but we're probably not going to get that big. The most you'll be using is 2-dimensional array and maybe 3-dimensional. I doubt you'll have a need for 4-dimensional arrays, but if you do, then by all means use it. So anyways, we're going to create a 2-dimensional array, and I'm going to show you why it's defined like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to say our new array, and we're going to make our map 4x4, a 4x4 square map. So we're just going to do 4x4. So by doing this, right, we've essentially said, okay, we want to have 4 columns and 4 rows. Essentially, that's exactly what we did, 4 columns and 4 rows. Now, it's important to note that the first element represents the rows, and the second element will represent the columns, okay? So if we were to change this to this, 3 and 4, then essentially we'd have 3 rows and we'd have 4 columns. So we'll do 3 and 4 just to make life a bit easier, okay? Now, as we defined our variables like this, right, using the curly brackets, if we wanted to define our variables in that same fashion using a multi-dimensional array, we'd do like so. So we specify our first curly brackets, and then we'd specify our values like so. So we'd say, I don't know, let's just use a value y, y, why is he using the value y? And then we do the same thing like so. And we gotta end it with a semicolon. And why is this red? Oh, sorry. We have to have 4 columns instead of 3. Sorry. That was my fault. So we'll add 4th column. So as you can see, we have 3 rows and we have 4 columns. So let's say, you know what, let's switch up these letters a bit. Oh, sorry, it's only 1 character, sorry. So let's say that I wanted to access this character right here. Well, in order to do so, I would just have to say, so we're just going to do system console write line. I just have to say map. Now let's count the rows. Row 0 or row 1. Let's count the columns. Column 0, 1, 2. So we'd say 1, comma 2. And so if we do Control F5 and we run this, as you can see, it displays the value A. So as you can see, that's why we define the commas here, because the commas will say we have our row there and then our column there. And if we had a 3-dimensional array, we'd have, I guess, our row, column, and or width, length, height, or whatever you will, however you want to define it. But in this case, we're just going to have our row and columns for our map. So we're going to be using this in an interesting way. So instead of defining chars on our map, what we're going to do is we're going to define them as integers. So we're going to have an integer multi-dimensional array, and we're still going to call this a map, and we're still going to make it 3 by 4. But in this case, instead of defining chars, we're going to define integers. So if we want to display the x in the map, we're going to define the number 0. If we want to define the star, we're going to define the number 1. So now let's just we'll define the number 1, and we'll just do 0. And I'll just do 1, and I don't know, 1, 1. We'll say 0, 0, 1. And we'll just do 0, 0, 1. Okay, so we have our map defined like so. Okay, so the zeros, wherever we see a 0, we want to put an X there, and whenever we see a 1, we want to put our asterisk there. So essentially, this is how we're going to go about it. So what we want to do is we want to lay it out like so. We want to print out this line, then we want to print out this line, then print out this line to get a nice, beautiful map. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do it using 2 for loops. So first, we want to have our x's and our y's. So we have our rows and our columns. So first, we'll have row, and we'll set row 0, and we'll say rows less than, and we'll say map. Now, this is an interesting thing. How do we get the amount of rows versus the amount of columns inside a map? Well, if we try to use the length property, so let's just try to use length, and if we put a breakpoint there and we try to run it, and we look at the bottom of the screen, or if we look here, sorry, we'll see that map length shows 12, right? Well, we do have 12 elements, but we want to see how many rows we have. Well, to do it, we have to use what is called we have to use the getLength method. So once we do getLength, we have to get the amount in the first dimension, so 1, 2, 3. And then when we want to get the columns, we have to do getLength on the second dimension, which would be 4. And so if we have a third dimension, then we could say get length dimension 2, which would be for the third dimension. So we're going to be looping through the rows, and then we're going to be looping through the columns. So we're going to say columns less than map get length 1 column plus plus. Okay, so we have our rows and we have our columns. So essentially what we want to do is we want to say, we're going to say system console right, not right line, just right. And what we're going to do is we're going to write tiles row, tiles map row column. So this might be a little confusing, so I'm going to extract this from you to make it a little easier. So we're going to say tile number, and then we're going to put the tile number inside the tiles like so. And outside this for loop, we're going to write the line. And actually, we don't even need to. We just gotta put, we'll do right, and we'll just say environment, new line. Okay, and so we're gonna run this first, then I'm going to explain to you exactly everything that's going on. So as you can see, this is a really ugly map. You know what, maybe we should just use X's and O's. Sorry. Let's run this, Control F5. So as you can see, everywhere we defined a 1, we get O, and everywhere we defined a 0, we get X. As you can see, the X is there, and we have our O's there. So let's explain what is going on. Let's walk through what's going on. And we use the power of breakpoints, and if you don't know what a breakpoint is, you can always watch my Debugging Made Easy tutorial series. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're setting row equal to 0 and column equal to 0, okay? And so we're saying we want our tile number to be map row column. So what's the value of row? The value of row is 0, the value of column is 0. What is that row 0? This is row 0, and what is that column 0? This, the value 1. So the value 1 is going to be set to tile number. So then when we go to write, we go to tiles and we say tiles 1. Okay, what is that value 1? We have tiles 0, then we have tiles 1. So now we're going to write the 0, and we're going to write the 0 there, or the O there. Then we're going to come back to this for loop again. Column is going to be increased by 1. Okay? So now, I'll just, sorry, I kind of paused my screen recorder there by accident by clicking F10. So I can't really click F10 while I'm debugging. So we'll just click F5 to hit that breakpoint again. We'll continue. So it went down here, it printed it, as you can see. We printed the circle, and we went to the loop again. So now columns 1, row is still 0, okay? So we have to say, okay, we're at row 0. What's at row 0? Column number 1. We have the value 0. Okay, so map row column is equal to 0. So our tile number will be equal to 0. So what is that? Tiles 0. Tile 0 has a value X, and so we'll display X. And if I run this, as you can see, it will display the value X. And it will do so on and so forth until it displays everything. And then that will be the end of our application. So as you can see, it will display our map. So I hope this wasn't too confusing for you, but the point of the point I was trying to make in this tutorial is that using multi-dimensional arrays, we can do a boatload of stuff, a lot of stuff that has to do with like 2D mapping or coordinates or anything like that. 2D arrays really help us in a way that one-dimensional arrays might not be of the most use. Can we do the same effect with one-dimensional arrays? Of course we can, but as you can see, it's much clearer and much better laid out in this situation. And if we didn't want to explicitly define our default values here, we could always simply define a value like this. 0, 0 is equal to 5, blah, blah, and so on and so forth. So we could still define our values like so, but I just thought that by showing you guys by defining like this, it's clearer and you can see exactly what is going on when we create our arrays. So that is it for this tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed creating your first ever town map. Or maybe it's not your first, maybe you've done it before, but I hope you enjoyed creating a sample text-based tile map. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe, and bye for now.